What man of you, having 100 sheep, if he loses one of them, does not leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after the one which is lost until he finds it?
Tremendous. We're back in John's Gospel this evening. John wrote in AD 90 his account of Jesus' life, and that's where we've been over these last few weeks. I'm loving this series. I don't know if you guys are, but I'm excited and loving this series. I thought Tom preached an absolute storm this morning. If you missed it, I would go on the video cast and catch it. It's fantastic truth and encourage us. And in fact, I thought we'd maybe just show it again, and I'll sit down, and that would be tremendous. Praise God. I love the fact that Jesus is looking to encourage you and I. He's looking to build us up and not pull us down. He's for us and not against us. You know, we come together and so often we think that He's just out to catch us doing wrong and then give us a grilling for the things that we're not doing. I love the fact that God is constantly trying to identify the things that we're doing right and to celebrate and to give thanks and to lift you and I up. And I thought this evening it would just be great if we could, as we go out into Monday morning tomorrow, be encouraged and be lifted up once again to be all that God has called us to be and to remind ourselves of who we are in Him this evening. There's a wonderful story in John chapter 6, and if you want to turn there, that would be great. If you don't have a Bible, then it'll be up on the screen behind. We're on this journey of really mobilizing all of us to be all that we can be for the ones in our life, for the loved ones that are around us, our family and our friends, for the associate ones that we work with every day, for the ones that perhaps we don't get on with every day. We're still those that God is calling to be outward looking and to be reaching and living for everyone in our lives. Whoever that everyone is. It's the everyone's, it's the anyone's in our lives. And tomorrow I hope it's going to be someone in your life. There is going to be someone specific tomorrow that you and I can be all that we can be for them. I believe that God has got a great plan for each one of us. He loves every one of us. Maybe you're in here, this room this evening, and you are the one that He's calling out to tonight. Maybe you are the one that He wants to convey how much He loves you and how much He's for you and what He's done by giving Jesus to live for you. Maybe you're the one this evening that He wants to remind you again, I'm for you and I'm not against you. I have a great plan for your life. A plan not to pull you down and to destroy you, but to lift you up and to make you prosper and to make the rest of your life on this earth as fulfilling as it possibly can be. You know, he says in the same John wrote that Jesus said Jesus was there to give you life and to give it as abundantly as He possibly could. Not only the by and by pie in the sky, eternal life that is beyond this when we take our last human breath. But right here, right now, this evening, that you and I would have an experience of that abundant life. And so there's a story in here which is the expression of that abundance that God wants to give. And it's in John chapter 6, and we'll read it together. We all know it is when Jesus fed the 5,000. And that's the wonderful bit about this story. But it's the side bits that I wanted to catch this evening. So he says, sometime after this, and when you get to sometime after this, just to set the context, this is around about AD 29, AD 30. Jesus has gone on a circuit from Jerusalem to Galilee, Jerusalem to Galilee, back and forth. This is the second time He's come round Galilee. And He's just about to head back to Jerusalem for the second time He would have the Passover together. And in that time, He's had many things have gone on in His life. He's lost his friend John the Baptist. He's just had his head lopped off. And Jesus, of course, as you can understand, is saddened by that. He's already been rejected in his hometown of Nazareth. He's had to deal with that rejection. And in that times of trying to just take some time to reflect on the challenges in his own life, He said to the disciples, why don't you guys go out and go with my word and go with the power and preach the gospel. Tell them this fantastic good news that Jesus is here God loves you and He's provided a way for your salvation. Why don't you go out? And so off they go. And they spend some weeks, perhaps months, around that area telling people. And now here they are, they come back at this time at the start of chapter 6. And they're all together again in that moment where it's time for them to give some feedback of how they've managed to communicate with the ones that they communicated with, how they've reached out with this great news that the Messiah has come, that the kingdom of God is here, that he's here with power to change lives, how that has impacted the ones that they've communicated. So sometime after is in this kind of confine. It says that Jesus crossed to the far shore of the Sea of Galilee. So he was going to if you read this story is in all four Gospels, so you get a sense that this is an important story. It's contained within every one of the four accounts. And some of the others fill in some of the details. And actually he went to a small town called Bethsaida, which is in the northeast corner of the Sea of Galilee. And it says that he crossed over to that shore. It took 4 miles from where he was. He went across in a boat and arrived there. Round the top is 10 miles. And it says that the crowd of people followed him. They went round the edge. They decided, let's do the Baker Hughes 10K and we'll go round the top of Galilee and we'll arrive at the same place because we want to hear what Jesus has to say. And it says in verse 2 that a crowd of people followed him because they saw the miraculous signs he had performed on the sick. And when they arrived there, Jesus went up on a mountainside and he sat down with his disciples, and the Jewish Passover feast was near. And when Jesus looked up and saw the great crowd coming towards him, he turned to Philip and he said, Philip, where shall we buy bread enough for these people to eat? And I love this little insight that John now gives when it's now AD 90, 60 years perhaps later. He gives us insight. He said, you know what? Jesus only asked this to test Philip because Jesus already knew in his mind what he was going to do. Philip, it says, answered him, Jesus, 8 months' wages couldn't buy enough bread for everyone to have a bite. We could empty every Starbucks in the city and there wouldn't be enough food to provide for these people. There would be, it was a lot of money. But another one of the disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. He said, here's a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish. Hey, but how far will they go among so many people? Jesus said, have the people sit down. And there was plenty of grass in that place, and the men sat down, about 5,000 of them. And Jesus took the loaves and he gave thanks, and he distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. And he did the same with the fish. And when they all had had enough to eat, he said to the disciples, hey, gather the pieces that are left over. Let nothing be wasted. So the disciples gathered them, and they filled 12 baskets with the pieces of 5 barley loaves left over by those who had eaten. After the people saw the miraculous sign that Jesus did, they began to say, surely this is the prophet who has come into the world. It's a fantastic story of how Jesus takes that which is simple and multiplies it and provides for everyone on that hillside. But behind that, there are 3 encounters that Jesus has with people. And I believe those encounters actually are the same expressions, the same, insights as you and I have. Each one has got the same sort of elements of experience and life as these 3 characters in the story have. We're made up, as it were, with all 3 characters in our own makeup. I love the fact that the disciples said, come on, let's all gather together and let's just have a meeting ourselves. Let's just have a time of reflection, a time when it's good for us to be together. And it's wonderful when we do that, isn't it? It's wonderful when we just get together and it's just Jesus and me. And we sing the songs that we know, that we talk the language that we know. It's in a setting that we're comfortable with. And everything is just as we want it to be. And everything happens the way we want it to be. And yet I love the fact that Jesus was constantly, as we were reminded this morning, always looking outward to the ones. He was always looking out for those that were not part of the group. His language and his story and his communication was always not for those that were within, but it was always for those that were without. Sunday by Sunday, if you come to this place, you'll find that we try our very best to communicate, not with those who are, as it were, in this church, but those who are not in this church. For the ones that at this moment don't have a relationship with Jesus. For the ones at this moment are still trying to discover, what is this Christianity all about? As Tom said and reminded us this morning, the most important thing is that the lost would be found. That's what this whole series is about. It's about the good shepherd leaving the 99 well-fed sheep and going out after the one. And I love this fact. When you look at the story in John, it says that Jesus was full of compassion when he looked up and saw 5,000 ones arriving on the hillside. When he looked up, it says he was full of compassion. Or in the old King James, it says his bowels of mercy were activated. Now, I don't know if any of you can catch a hold of what that means, but if you've been in an exam setting or if you've been in a place where you're scared, then your bowels are involved. I remember when I was in love and I still am in love, but yeah. But you know what it was like when I was young and in love. And I was anxious that Elizabeth would say, I don't want to be with you anymore. Or she would say, that's it, we're done. Then it was my bowels that were activated. MD, no? Oh, just the three of us, okay. You uncaring, uncompassionate bunch. There's a great connection between your brain and your gastrointestinal system. And the old picture was one of it. The compassion that Jesus had so moved him that it actually impacted him internally. It was not just a head thing. That actually made a difference internally. Maybe for you, you're maybe aware of your heart beating. When you see that person with that kind of sparkly thing, you know what you do in Insta stories, and you get those little sparkly things that go around, and it's all loved up. When you get that, and your heart goes boom, 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 boom. It's that kind of idea. And Jesus, it says, was moved with compassion because of the ones that had showed up. He was always orientated towards the one. But you see, I love that fact that for you and I, these three different kinds of people that are represented are because it says there that Jesus wanted to test Philip. Now, I love that about God for you and for me. We're in here this evening, and we've journeyed through the weekend. We've journeyed through this last week. But it's wonderful that God never wants to stop testing you and I. He never wants to stop discovering what's really our makeup. What is the thing that really makes us tick? What are the drivers within us? What are the motivators that move us on? Is it the positiveness for the one? Is it the negative stuff that goes on in our lives? Is it that which we don't like that motivates us? Or what is it the things that motivate us? And it says here that Jesus wanted to test him, because he already knew what he was going to do. I just love that about God. He already knows what your week is like. He already knows who you're going to meet. He already knows who's going to come into your world this week. He already knows the wonderful things that are going to happen to you. He already knows some of the challenges that are ahead of you this week. They're all there because he's outside of time. He knows everything that's going to happen in your world this week. And yet, there's this beautiful picture that he tests us. He puts things in to see exactly which is on the inside. When I did chemistry at school, you remember those days you loved it, didn't you? You took a little bit of this chemical and a little bit of that chemical. You put them together and things went boom. Well, they weren't supposed to, but you know when you did that and the chemistry teacher was out of the way and you said, come on, let's put a little bit of this in, a little bit more of that. And you were we used to have a cupboard that you could go in. It was a smelly kind of cupboard. And you put your hands in and you could mix all these wonderful chemicals and to see what was inside them. Yeah, a little bit more of this. And things would kind of explode with, you made volcanoes, all that kind of stuff. Help me, please. You still do that in school? No, okay. Okay, it was better than my day. I love that, yeah. Anyway, it's that picture that God is trying to put into your life and into my life, ways in which he's going to discover, ways in which he's going to assess us, way in which he's going to, as it were, determine what are the elements of our life, how orientated to the one are we. And there are three simple ones here, three elements, as it were, three characters that make up this story. But all those characters are in each one of us. And this evening, I just want to ask the question, which one are you? Which one are you of these three characters? Or which one of these three characters dominates who you are in relation to where we look at outwardly towards the one? You see, the first one is the passivity one. The passivity one, which is a picture of Philip. Philip was the passivity one. John named and shamed him, although in the other stories, the other four accounts, it said it was a collective responsibility where they said to Jesus, send them away. Send them. We can't deal with this. We can't manage the ones. We don't have what it takes to deal with the ones. I can't embrace the one. I can't deal with the issues. I can't see the facts are too difficult for me to actually get involved with or deal with or manage the situation of the one. So please, Jesus, just send them away. It says, Philip said, how can we possibly manage this? It would take 8 months of wages, and that still wouldn't be enough. He's saying, the passivity one is the I can't do it one. I can't be the one to reach the one. I don't have what it takes to get a relationship with the one. I can't have anything within me. I'm allergic to getting involved. I'm allergic to taking responsibility on for the one. I'm allergic to being intentional about doing anything on behalf of the one. You see, Philip was seeing the problem of the one through natural eyes. The facts were telling him it was not going to be possible for him to make any difference in this large crowd. The facts were suggesting to him that actually the problems that were coming to him were much greater than he could assess and manage. The issue in front of him was much greater than he had capacity to deal with. And sometimes our lives are like that. When somebody comes into our lives, when a story comes into our lives, when we bump up with the ones in our lives, it's so easy to think that's somebody else's problem. That's somebody else's issue. Send them away that somebody else may be able to help them, because I don't have what it takes to help them. My story is so simple. My story and my faith is so small. My understanding is so limited. I can't do anything to help. I can't do anything that's going to be able to make a difference in their life. And when I look out, I see the city. How are we going to reach this city? 220,000 people. How can we reach such a large crowd made up of ones? But we sometimes can be like Philip. The passivity one says, there's nothing I can do. You need to send them away, Jesus. In fact, it's far too much for us. When you look at the other Gospels, there's more of an understanding of the why, that the passivity one, which exists within all of us. I'm sure we're all the same. There are occasions and times when we're thinking, there's nothing I can do here. I can't help. I can't make any difference. I can't reach the one. I can't communicate with the one. The one is beyond me and so great. For Philip, there were many things. For him, he was saying, if the location isn't right, the place where we're at, this is a remote place. Where are we ever going to get what we need to help you? The location isn't right. And so for many of us, it's that reason that keeps us passive. We think, I can't share my faith in my workplace. I can't tell anybody about Jesus. What do they think? This is not the right place for me to do that. This is not the right place for me to tell my faith. This is not the right setting for me to do that. And for Philip, it was easy. He said, this is not the right place. We're on a mountainside. We don't have the resources here to do it. It was also late in the day. Sometimes it's the occasion. It's the timing is not right. So many, forgive me if I'm so different from you, but I don't think I am. Within me is the passivity one. He exists within me also. When the one comes into my life, so many times I'm thinking, this is not the right time. I'm in the middle of this, I'm doing that, I've got there to go, I've got that to do, I've got places to be, I've got people to see, and somebody bumps into your life, and you think, this is a God moment and I'm supposed to talk, but actually it's not the right time for me. Actually, when I get my life sorted out, and when I get my understanding of who God is, and when I get myself clear about this Christian thing that I'm involved in, then it'll be the right time. But at the moment, I don't have anything, and it's not the right time. Sometimes the issues that come at us are so great that we actually think the provision within me is not great enough to manage those problems. I remember when I was a young GP, I had no experience of life. I was 28, I guess. I'd had a couple of kids by that point. But I hadn't gone through many of life's experiences, and I remember elderly patients would come into the room and they would offload me all this stuff, and I would sit there and think, I don't have the provision to meet the needs that you're presenting. I don't know how to manage the needs that you have. You've come in here one-on-one with me. It's been my privilege to open the door and bring you into the surgery, and I'm sitting there, and they're offloading a story, and I think, I don't have the provision. And I would sit there and I would just listen because I had no advice to give back. And at the end, the patient would say, oh, Dr. Duthie, thank you so much. It was amazing. And I'm sitting inside and there's a tape going, what did I just do? But I didn't realize that all they wanted was just a listening ear to offload with. But often we think we don't have the provision in which to manage. And Philip was in the same place. He could have easily thought, you know what, the location is wrong, Jesus. We're not in the right place here to do anything about these ones that have showed up. This is not the right time. It's late in the day. How are we going to manage any food? And actually, the resources that I have is so much less than the need that exists. And we can so often be caught in that equation where the need is so much greater than the resource that we have. And because there isn't a match, then we don't even start. And we'll say, send them away. That's the passivity one. Philip, the passivity one. And he lives within me. I hope he doesn't live within you, but I know he lives within me. The passivity one. And I wonder how high up the order of these three is the passivity one in your life. But I'm grateful that the passivity one is not the only one that lives within. Because the next one that encounters Jesus is the possibility one. His name was Andrew. And it says, another of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up and said, here's a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish, but how far will they go among so many? I love the possibility one. The possibility one says, here's a boy with. Great statement. Andrew sees the little boy. Why? Because he's looking for the little boy. He sees this one because he's looking for the one. Tom said it much more clearly than I'm going to say it this evening. But so much is dependent on our vantage point and our perspective. But Andrew had a different perspective. He had a different vantage point. He had a different perception. He was looking differently, so he saw differently. Philip saw the same crowd, but he couldn't see the one because he wasn't looking for the one. Andrew saw the little boy because he was looking for something. He was looking for the one. And tomorrow morning, we need to go out these doors. In fact, why wait till tomorrow morning? This evening, as you head for Starbucks, as you head for wherever you're going, we need to be looking for the one. Because God has placed within us the possibility one, not only the passivity one, but the possibility one. He lives within you and I, and we need to be encouraged that he's living within us, or she's living. You forgive the he bit, okay? But let's get that out of the way. When I mean he, it's for all of us, but let me just keep on talking about he. But he lives with the possibility one, lives within each one of us. I love that Andrew was positive about what he did have, not negative about what he didn't have. Philip, see, was negative about what he didn't have. But Andrew had a different perspective, a different vantage point. He kicked off by being positive about what he did have. Here's a little dude with 5 loaves and 2 fish. He was positive about what he did have. So often we underestimate what we have and what is around us in other people. We should be much more positive about what exists around us and in the others that we come in contact with every day. Possibility ones always bring solutions, not problems. Are we bringers of solutions or are we bringers of problems? God has placed within you and I the possibility one. He lives and he breathes and he's alive within us. Andrew was full of what could be rather than what was. He was a risk taker. Sometimes fear sees the problems, but faith sees the possibilities. And I'm glad that for Andrew and for the possibility one, faith always precedes fear. You see, it's a statement of 2 halves, huh? He says, here's a little boy with, but what's that going to do for so many? It's 2 statements separated by a but. I'm glad that the here's a boy with 2 fish comes before the, but what can that little thing do for anybody? I'm glad that he's got the order right. Where is the order in our lives in the possibility one? Have we got the positive? Here's a boy first in our lives. Is that our priority? Is that the statement that we make first? You know what? Maybe perhaps this will be the answer to the issues of the one. Maybe this will be the solution that we're looking for the challenges of the one. I know it still seems a large problem. I know it still seems difficult. Nothing changed, and yet Andrew saw differently because he was looking differently. What does it take to become the possibility one? What does it take for you and I to build and grow the possibility one in our lives? And to put down the passivity one and let the passivity one become quieter and quieter and the possibility one in our lives grow stronger and stronger. Number one, I think it starts with the identification. It starts with us looking differently. It starts with us having different eyes, as Tom shared this morning, to have a different perception and a different perspective as we go out tomorrow. To have a look and see, God, who are the ones in my life that you want me to reach? It moves from the identification to the invitation. Because there would have been a conversation between Andrew and this little boy who would have just said, hey, come on, I want you to meet this man who would really benefit from the little lunch that you've got. Would you be willing to give away that Happy Meal? Would you be willing to part with your Happy Meal? Would you be willing to utilize that Happy Meal for the benefit of some other ones? I've got a man who I think was looked for you to help. So it was an invitation. And can it be that we could become, as Andrew was, always a bringer? Always an inviter of people to meet Jesus. That's all that we need to be. That's what the possibility one is all about. It's about inviting. It's about identifying. It's about inviting. About saying, hey, come and meet Jesus who's transformed my life. Come and meet the one who's taken away my chain, totally transformed my life. Come and meet the one who's forgiven me and set me free. Come and meet the one who's broken the chains of addiction that I had, who's broken the bondage of habits that I had. Come and meet the one who's healed my broken heart. Come and meet the one who's taken away the fears and anxieties that gripped me for all my time. Come and meet the one who's taken away my rejection and said who I really am. Come and meet him. I wonder if we could be that inviting group. That's all that we're asking. That's all that God is asking of you and I. If we're going to let the possibility one grow within us, it needs for you and I to look differently, to identify differently, but to invite differently. It looks for us to implement. He was not only an inviter, he was an implementer, because he would have accompanied him to Jesus, because the story says that he presented him to Jesus. Here's a little boy with 5 loaves and 2 fish. You see, it's one thing to invite, isn't it? But it's another thing to pick up and take and bring. And Andrew never was an inviter only. He was a bringer. And it says that he brought his brother to Jesus. He was always somebody who went and accompanied. Can I encourage you? On Sundays, why don't you go pick somebody up and bring them? Do more than the invite. Go get them and bring them. Take them in your car. Say, I'm going to bring you to church. I'll take you. You don't have to get there on your own. I'll bring you. Sometimes it's easy to make the invite, isn't it? But it's harder to go and implement that invite and say, I'll be the bringer. I'll be the one who'll take you to Jesus' presence. And he accompanies him. He escorts him. He takes him there. And he's the one that brings the introduction to Jesus. I love that. So what do you and I need to do? How can we become the possibility ones? Well, one, I think it starts with living a real life. Living a real life. That the life that you and I live is a life of integrity. It's the same before God as it is before others. It's the same every day that we live a real life, not a sham thing that has got all this kind of spiritual stuff on a Sunday and then we live totally differently Monday through Saturday. Let's live a real life. But let's be men and women who actually have a reason within us when people ask, why are you so different? What is it about you that is different? Let's live as though there was a reason inside. Let's live with a different motivation and a different purpose, that there is not only a real life that we're living, but we're living with a reason inside. Could it be that we could rise up and, as it were, feed the possibility one within us by living a real life before men and women, by being the ones who've got a reason inside, by actually relating to people, not in King James English, but relating to them and getting involved in people's lives, having a genuine compassion for others. Let our internal function be affected by the ones in our lives. And could it be this week that we would risk it? Could it be that we would take a risk this week and actually move beyond the bringing, move beyond the invite, and actually risk it in conversation with somebody? I love that notion of the possibility ones live for a different outcome because they expect a different outcome. Andrew has different expectations. He could see a different future. He could see a possibility that what this little boy had could actually make a difference to the ones on the hill. Could it be this week that you and I could actually see that the little things that are around us, the little things that people had, actually could make a difference in somebody else's life? All he realized was that he needed to get people to Jesus, to meet Jesus. That's all that you and I are called to do, is to get people to meet Jesus. He'll do it all. It's not about what you and I can do. It's about what he can do. Our task is to bring the one to Jesus. I love the reality that the possibility one within us perceives the invisible, sees what is not seen, believes the impossible, but actually receives the incredible. And that's the reality that took place in this story. Are you strongest in the passivity one? Are you strongest in the possibility one? And the third one is this little boy, the participatory one. The participatory one. The unnamed little boy who's the provider of the miracle. He's never got a name. He's got no identity. He's got no personality. We don't know if he's sunny yellow personality and loves people. We don't know if he's an extrovert that would always be, hey, I'm here, here's my meal. Or if he's a quiet little shy boy. We don't know. All we know is that he was happy to participate in that which was asked of him. I'm looking forward to the day in heaven when I search all of heaven. Where's that boy? Where's that little boy gone? Where's he gone? This little guy that provided that meal. I'm looking forward to meeting him. Here he is 2,000 years later, and we're talking about him this evening. How exciting is that? Nameless one. Like so many of us in this room, we're never going to make a name for ourselves. We're never going to have a name. We're always going to be those nameless people that participate in reaching the one for others. This morning, Tom talked about his neighbors, the Kavanaghs next door. Nobody knows about them. If he hadn't mentioned, nobody would have known. But heaven has recorded that they participated in the miracle that God had for his life. All of us can speak about an uncle, Victor Duthie. Nobody would know Victor. Victor has gone to be with God many years ago, but I remember was a young man, the walks I had with Victor. And when he spoke into my life and said things into my life, he was taken at a younger age. He's a funny man, a great guy, but he's not known. He's not known over Scotland. He's not known over Glasgow where he lived. He's not known. He's a nameless dude. But yet he participated in the miracle because he made available that which he had. And that's all this little boy was asked to do. And that's all that you and I are asked to do. You see, he was already carrying the miracle on him. It says that Jesus had in mind what he was going to do. I just imagine the picture as Philip is coming forward. And Jesus is having a conversation with Philip. But he knows up there, over there, is the little boy with the miracle already in his hand. Jesus already knows that. But he has a conversation with Philip to say, Philip, I know you're a passivity one, but I'm going to give you an opportunity to be the possibility one today. I'm going to give you an opportunity for the possibility one in your life to rise up and become the one that is the main one in your life. I'm going to give you that opportunity, Philip. And Philip says, ooh, no, if we count all this up, we're too late in the day. It's too far out in the remote situation. If we count all this up, Jesus, you know, this is 20,000 quid's worth. Where are we going to get 20,000 quid? That's a lot of bread we're going to buy. No, it's not possible. We can't reach these people. Why don't we just send them away and put the responsibility somewhere else? And over here runs, hey, Jesus, I've met this little boy away over in the corner. And you can just imagine Jesus turning around saying, hi, Andrew, how's it going? And he says, I've met this little boy. And Jesus inside is saying, yeah, I know that little boy. He was away over there in the crowd. I knew it was his little lunchbox I was good. But here he comes as the participatory one, saying, this is all I have, but I'm making it available to reach the one. What is it you and I have, the little that we have, that can transform the life? It was just a happy meal, but it became a miracle meal. You maybe don't think you've got much, but in the hands of God, in the hands of the Lord Jesus, that which you make available to participate in the lives of others is going to change the life of someone. For we don't know how much the changing of the someone changes the lives of everyone. Let's finish with this wonderful story. It happened decades ago in Scotland. And from the cry from the darkness came, help me, help me. And this farmer heard the cry, help me, and he came across this nearby bog, and in the bog was a little boy, and he was sinking deep into the bog. And the farmer thought, what can I do? There's nothing I can do here. I don't have anything to offer this little one who's about to lose their life in this bog. He said, well, all I can do is throw a rope in and try and pull him out. So in the middle of the night, this Scottish farmer throws a rope in and slowly and steadily pulls this little boy out of a bog. And as he pulls the little boy out of the bog, the little boy is so grateful, and he thanks him. He says, I'll have to run away now. The farmer goes on with his work, and the little boy runs away. But the next morning, there's a knock on the farmer's door, and as the farmer opens the door, there's a guy of great standing and wealth, and a gentry kind of man standing at the door. And as he stood at the door, this wealthy gentleman said, sir, you saved my little son's life yesterday. We'd lost him, and he got lost, and he stuck in a bog, and I understand that you saved him yesterday. I would like to give you some financial recompense. And the farmer says, I don't want any money. I was just doing what I could do. It was all I could do. I just had a piece of rope and I threw that in and I lifted him out. And the wealthy gentleman said, well, surely, sir, there must be something I can do. And at the moment, a little boy ran behind the farmer. He said, I see you've got a little boy. And the farmer said, yes, I have a little boy. He said, well, I see the surroundings that you're living in. He was a peasant farmer, as many were at the turn of the last century. He said, I see the surroundings here. How would it be if I perhaps educated your son and took him and allowed it? So conversation went back and forth, and eventually the farmer said, well, okay, that would be amazing if you could give my son a good education. The wealthy gentleman took the son away and he educated him, and he became a significant educated young man, and eventually he graduated from St. Mary's Hospital Medical School in London. Because of that educational gift he received from the wealthy gentleman, the poor farmer's son in turn gave the gift to the world, to everyone, the gift of penicillin, because the little man, the farmer's boy, was Alexander Fleming. Amazing story, but that's not where it ends. Just because the farmer threw out all that he had and said, I'll make it available for the one in the bog, he lifted him out. And Alexander Fleming became the founder, along with another couple of dudes, of penicillin. Many years later, that wealthy gentleman's son was once again very unwell this time. He was almost dying. He'd contracted pneumonia. And he was about on death's door, but it was the penicillin from Alexander Fleming that cured the wealthy gentleman's son once again. And he was healthy once again. How funny how all that stuff comes round. Now, the wealthy gentleman's son was Sir Winston Churchill, and the father was Lord Randolph Churchill. All because a farmer said, I'll participate on behalf of the one. All I have is a rope. How many in here have never had penicillin? All you allergic to penicillin people are excluded from the poll. But how many of you have not consumed penicillin? All because a farmer threw a rope into a bog. We don't know for a minute what God can do and take the happy meals in our lives if we let the participatory one rise in our lives for the ones in your life. Who knows what God can transform? He transformed the experience of 5,000 people on a hillside in northern Galilee. Who knows what he can do for the 220,000 in our city of Aberdeen from the one who just says, I'm going to participate tomorrow. I'm going to be the one who, let's say, within me, the participatory one. No more is the passivity one going to reign. I'm going to take at least the possibility one and feed him and give him opportunity as I bring invitation, as I encourage people to come, as I live for Jesus, and I get people to ask me what's the reason of the faith that is within you. Come on, could it be that we take the little that we have, make it available for God to transform the world around us, to transform everyone that's in your life? Come on, huh? Hallelujah. Praise God.